So, a few words on the latest situation in Ukraine, particularly the position of Donald Trump. Now, in the normal election cycle, the defeated candidate will be history, but Trump is seriously musing a presidential run in 2024. So, unfortunately, he's like a bad stink that won't go away. I've never made a secret of the fact that I'm not a fan of Trump. Um, And I think what he's just come out with reiterates why this man is utterly unfit for the White House. So, talking about the crisis, Trump was talking about Putin's incursion into Ukraine, and he called it a genius move. A genius move. So he's praising Putin at a time when millions of Ukrainians are having their very existence as a nation state questioned by the Russian state apparatus. I think this is disgraceful, but I don't think it's surprising. Um, Trump may have been tough with China, and it's one of the few areas he got right. But when it comes to Russia, at best, it's ambiguous. True, after Salisbury, the US State Department issued sanctions, but on a personal level, Donald Trump has a very long track record of pandering to and cheerleading for Putin. So, I hear a lot of people saying Biden is weak and Biden's incompetent. And maybe he is. I don't think Joe Biden's going to go down as a great president. But it isn't Joe Biden praising foreign dictators, galvanizing foreign dictators. I mean, people might say Trump was just talking about how Putin took advantage of this situation post Afghanistan because America's credibility was severely damaged from that. But even if that's the case, what sort of morale is that going to give to the Ukrainian people to hear a former American president talk about the tyrant that is threatening them as a genius? And it isn't just Trump. Mike Pompeo was praising Putin this week as well. So I think this is a reminder that Putin apologists and Putin cheerleaders aren't just found on the far left; they're also found on the hard right. Um, but I'm sick of people who doggedly defend Trump turning a blind eye to things like this. I mean, how do they defend this? Here you have Donald Trump praising the Russian dictator. What the hell? Whilst he's threatening a sovereign state. I mean, genius? Even if he really thinks that, there's a time and a place. Not that Trump's ever known much about statesmanship. Oh, he knows Putin going way back by his own admission. I know the guy really well. Frankly, it's sickening. I mean, to be honest, that sickens me as much as hearing Western accent on RT. But this is gold to RT, of course, because not only does it exploit Western divisions, but you have a former American president praising Tsar Vlad. I think Donald Trump's a disgrace to democracy. I mean, this has got nothing to do with American security interests. This is Donald Trump's ego. He just wants to attack and vilify Joe Biden whenever he gets a chance because he's still bitter about losing the election. Um, and I think it's relevant because there's actually a chance he could be nominated in 2024, which would be a very sad state of affairs. I mean, in both parties, there is dissent right now. Within the Republican side, apparently Ron DeSantis is creating quite a stir, so I don't know if there'll be a schism within the Republican side. But I think Donald Trump is a bad stink that won't go away. I think he's fundamentally bad for democracy. I mean, he had some gall talking about his critics as traitors. They don't support him. I mean, Trump acts like a sort of deluded monarch who can't accept that he lost. Um, but I remember the time he stood beside Vladimir Putin literally and moaned about how the American media were tough on him. He literally stood beside Putin whilst he was complaining about the American press and the US security services while standing beside Vladimir Putin. I honestly think Putin was bemused by it. So, the Trump apologists will no doubt find some way to gloss us over. They'll claim he was misquoted. They will claim, oh, he's just talking about Putin taking advantage of the situation. If that's the case, he still could have said that. I mean, this is pointless even saying because Trump is not a statesman. But, if he thought that it's a case of, well, Putin's taking advantage of, let's say, a weak American president in Joe Biden, um, if this is Trump's view, then he could say that without praising Putin. And they could say, and now we have this great tragedy. Putin's threatening Ukraine. Not once did Trump actually condemn it. But surely that speaks volumes. I mean, his track record was tough on China and at best ambiguous on Russia. Like to say, yes, the State Department issued sanctions against Russia, but Trump personally, I think he's a Putin apologist. He's a Putin cheerleader. And I think he has some damn gall talking about treason when he won't accept the result of a democratic election that saw him lose because he's a sore loser. And, he routinely praises the Russian dictator. So I just think it's staggering. Um, but on the issue of RT, it looks like things are finally starting to escalate in terms of their status because I mentioned Keir Starmer called out RT. It looks like the government's now calling for Ofcom to review their situation, to review their status. Ofcom claims that they're keeping up to date all the time. Um, I hope Ofcom faces sufficient heat in order to actually get their act together and do something for once. I mean, their fines are meaningless. They gave RT a fine after Salisbury, and RT laughed at them. There is one other point interesting. If you look at Facebook, Russia Today, the main page, I'm not talking about like RT UK or RT US or any of those. I mean, their main page has 6.1 million likes or followers on Facebook. CNN has 18 million. BBC World News, say what you want about it, it has 54 million likes. So, as a barometer of influence, maybe it's possible to overstate RT, if that's anything to go by. But certainly the situation looks critical. Scott Morrison of Australia, so it shows the true global interest in this, um, was speculating that there will be an invasion within 24 hours. I don't know whether Australia has intelligence or whether they're sharing intelligence at that sort of leadership level or what, but it looks like something is definitely going to happen imminently because Russia's been evacuating Russian speakers from Luhansk and Donetsk. Ukraine's been calling up reservists. It looks like at this point, it's very hard to see this decreasing, which is a tragedy because young Ukrainian soldiers and young Russian soldiers will die. Civilians will die. It's a tragic situation and it's been brought on by the madman in Moscow. Um, I think Putin is a threat to world peace, and I think he's shown it time and time again.